radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Vice President Mike Pence makes a public show of turning his back on the NFL in a pre-planned protest of players taking a knee during the national anthem. And of course, it costs taxpayers a lot of money to fly there and secure a stadium, only to walk out for what looked to be a PR stunt.
Mika Brzezinski weighing in on Vice President Trump's walkout during this game this weekend. Raymond Arroyo sitting in for Laura Ingraham just for a little bit. Laura will be joining us shortly. Of course, the Billionaire at the Barricades tour begins tomorrow. Laura's new book, Billionaire at the Barricades, out in bookstores tomorrow. It's available everywhere now. The number is 855-40. Laura, I want to get into this. I want to unpack this a little bit. The vice president walking out on this Colts game. He flew from Las Vegas, where he was comforting victims of the terrible slaying there, went to Indianapolis for the game, and right after the national anthem, walked out. Now, there are some, like Mika and others, her soon-to-be husband. Are they married yet? I don't know if they're married yet. Not yet. But they are suggesting that this is nothing more than a PR stunt by the vice president. Here's Joe Scarborough.
This was a stunt. You call a stunt something that you know is going to happen, and you go and you play it out. So he went there knowing the 49ers were going nil. No, everybody in the NFL knew it.
Well, here's the point. They're trying to create this narrative that President Trump and Vice President Pence somehow conspired to go to Indianapolis, have the vice president and his wife fly to Indianapolis, stand there for the national anthem, and in mock outrage storm out. They're basing this on a tweet that the president sent out after the game where he said, "I asked Vice President Pence to leave the stadium if any players kneeled, disrespecting our country. I'm proud of him and Second Lady Karen." Now, apparently, the pool reporter accompanying the vice president was also notified that they could stay in the car or get out, but probably stay in the car because they thought the vice president would be leaving the game early. Well, that didn't mean he was going to walk out during the national anthem. It just meant he might be leaving the game early because he had other business in Los Angeles. Now, they're saying, hold on. Taxpayer money have been spent, $250,000 to fly them out, and Secret Service, and they had to secure the stadium. Take a breath, and let me remind all of you, let's back up a little bit. The protests that we've been seeing over the last few weeks in NFL stadiums all over the country are taxpayer funded, okay? So taxpayers are contributing to the free speech protests of everybody involved here. Not just the vice president, okay? Every one of these players, when they walk in a uniform into a stadium, those are tax-financed stadiums. You pay for those, usually via your state taxes. I know in my home state, the tax breaks they get at the Superdome in New Orleans is off the charts. Off the charts. And that stands in most stadiums across the country. Those are publicly financed buildings, and there's security. There's lots of state-funded measures that go to protecting and sustaining a venue like that. So I want your reaction to this. Were you offended by the vice president walking out, or is he reflecting where you are? When you look at the polls, when you look at the ratings, NFL attendance and viewership is down from 2015 and plummeting. Now, the president has been, he retweeted again today, this morning rather. He said, the trip by Vice President Pence was long planned. He's receiving great praise for leaving the game after the players showed such disrespect for country. Now, those players are speaking out. Eric Reed, a safety for the 49ers, one of the guys who early on knelt with Kaepernick and really started this whole movement. Again, it used to be 12 guys. Now it's the whole league standing or kneeling or linking arms. And we're going to talk about that, too, whether protests like this are appropriate. This is Eric Reed. Listen.
The last time he's been to a Colts game was 3 years ago. So this looks like a PR stunt to me. He knew our team has had the most players protests. He knew that we were probably going to do it again. And so this is what systemic oppression looks like. A man with power comes to the game, tweets a couple of things out, and leaves the game with an attempt to thwart our efforts.
Systemic oppression. This is what systemic oppression looks like. Do you agree with that? 855-405-2872. Is this systemic oppression, the vice president oppressing the NFL players by walking out? And just one more point, something that occurred to me the minute I heard this bite. Why is it only a PR stunt when the vice president does it? These guys have been doing this for weeks during the national anthem when they know it was televised. That's not a PR stunt? That wasn't a provocative gesture to raise awareness for your cause? And the cause being, now, initially it was cops shooting young black men. That's what Kaepernick initially, he was reacting to two reports. I went back and traced this. He went back and found, we found the two reports. I believe one case was in Minnesota. Can't remember where the other was. But he knelt out of protest for the way the cops treated that young man in those cases, both black young men. As it turns out, the cops were exonerated in both those cases, which raises the question. So what are we now taking a knee for? Now they say it's broadened. It is racial inequity. It is looking for justice. Well, I know a lot of people who could take knees for all manner of things. Pay inequities. They don't get vouchers for their kids. They got to pay full freight on private tuition while they're paying for some other kid to go to public school. I mean, there are lots of reasons people could protest or take a knee. Are we willing to engage in an enduring protest in America during a moment, the national anthem, that is supposed to unify people? What do you make of the locking arms? I read Jerry Jones, he's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. And Jones came out Sunday and he said that any of his players who disrespect the flag during the anthem won't play in games. He was asked at the conclusion about two players who, at the conclusion of the anthem, two players raised their fists. He said, I don't know about that, but if there's anything that is disrespectful to the flag, they will not play. You understand? If we are disrespecting the flag, then we won't play, period. We're going to respect the flag. I'm going to create a perception of that, and we have. Well, the way he's done it, I mean, that's nice of Jerry Jones to say that. The problem is the way he's done it is he goes out and locks arms where he kneels with the team before the national anthem. Do you enjoy that? Is that permissible to you? You viewers of NFL, you people who go and plop down $200 a time to fill the seat, or spend your Sundays watching these games, or buy the jerseys and the insignia, plaster the magnet decals onto your car. Is that satisfying to you, kneeling before the national anthem? Or is that offensive as well? And do you think the president was out of vice president rather was out of line? 855-405-2872. Boy, do we have a lot on tap today. Of course, happy Columbus Day to those of you who celebrate it. In some localities, it's, what is it, Indigenous People Day? Indigenous People Day, whatever that means. I guess we can all celebrate. Did they all found the country? Did they all found the continent? I don't know. Well, we're going to we'll check that, look into that. I remember when I was a kid in school, Christopher Columbus, we would draw the little pictures of Columbus and the galleons he sailed to the New World, and he was a symbol of exploration and new worlds to be explored. And now he's turned into some barbarous, heinous murderer. It's like an Old Testament figure. We now depict them as these kind of bloody lunatics running around, in the name of God, destroying indigenous people. I mean, they actually brought. Well, we'll get into that later. We're going to get into Columbus Day later. I don't want to start now. I am in New York, where there are threats to the Columbus statues here. Did you ever think we'd be in a place where statues would be threatened? But I guess they are. Raymond Arroyo sitting in for Laura Ingraham. I want to hear from you on this NFL protest. We're going to get into all aspects of it. Again, these are publicly funded venues. These are your venues. You should have a word. I love also Eric Reed. this was the most clearest protest. He and his team had the most clearest protest. That's good. Oh, well. We'll be back in a moment. Raymond Arroyo sitting in for Laura Ingraham. Stay with us.
I've been telling you for weeks that we need men and women like you to enlist in our nationwide campaign to pressure Congress to pass the tax cuts that we voted for when we elected Donald Trump to drain the swamp in Washington. Here's the good news. Hundreds of thousands of you have already gone to taxcutsnow.com and signed up. But we still need more signatures to ratchet up the pressure on Congress. The average tax cut under the Trump plan is over $2,000 per family. That may not be real money in Washington, but it's real money to you. Money you can spend on the things you care about. And if you haven't yet signed on, please take less than a minute to join our cause. And then share the link to taxcutsnow.com with your family, friends, church members, and coworkers. Send a message to Washington that business as usual will not cut it. Senator McConnell and Speaker Ryan need to hear from you loud and clear. You want your tax cuts, and you want them now, not next year, this year. Go to taxcutsnow.com. That's Tax Cuts Now.
Well, Vice President Mike Pence, of course, making big headlines yesterday and today. He published a response, and the Vice President said, I left today's Colts game because President Trump and I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, or our national anthem. At a time when so many Americans are inspiring our nation with their courage, resolve, and resilience, now more than ever, we should rally around our flag and everything that unites us. While everyone is entitled to their opinions, I don't think it's too much to ask NFL players to respect the flag and our national anthem. I stand with President Trump, I stand with our soldiers, and I will always stand with our flag and our national anthem. How do you feel about this? Raymond Arroyo sitting in for Laura Ingraham. She'll be joining us in just a little bit. 855-40-LAURA is the number if you'd like to chime in. Oh, every line's lit up here. Let's go to Susan in Indiana. Your reaction to this, Susan?
Hi, Raymond. I wanted to say that Governor Pence and Vice President Pence and Karen are the parents of our U.S. Marines, and he has been deployed, and he stands every day to give his life for our flag and our nation so that the NFL can disrespect and have the right to play a game.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for the comment. No, it is an interesting point. Look, there are people who say, wait a minute, these NFL players, they have a constitutional right to protest. And I think that opinion is correct. They do, like every other American. The question is, do they have a right to protest during a game in a tax-funded stadium, at work, and during the national anthem when it's being televised? This weekend, incidentally, or rather last week on Monday Night Football, Kansas City, there was ESPN decided to air the anthem. It was the Redskins versus the Chiefs, and I guess 3 of the players protested, and this was caught on ESPN. That did not go down well with players. There were a lot of, or with viewers rather, there were a lot of boos. People turned off their television. Let's go to Mike, Florida. You say what?
Yeah, I flew to London last week for the Saints-Miami game.
Wow.
I've been a Saints fan. Yeah, well, it was paid for way in advance. The Saints are staying above the fray until Charlotte. They played 2 weeks ago, and like 13 sat during the national anthem. And I didn't leave that game. I go to all the games, both home and away, have season tickets. Been a fan 40 years, but I'm retired Air Force. I was in the Air Force, retired police officer. And when I got to London, I pretty much knew what may happen before the anthem. All the Saints took a knee. During the anthem, 4 Miami Dolphins sat or took a knee, and I removed my Saints jersey. I stood on it, and then when I left the stadium, right after the anthem, I walked out. All the people in London, the ticket takers, where are you going? The game's starting. I'm not going to put up with this. They all stood for God, that's the Queen, and I threw my jersey in a garbage can and went to a pub and watched cricket and soccer. I wouldn't watch the NFL over there.
Wow. Unbelievable. Thanks for the call, Mike. A lot of people are like this. Look, I have members of my own family. I have friends, and these are rabid. Like Mike, I'm a Saints fan, a big Saints fan. But there are many more who are rabid, far beyond my, I mean, I tune in. I'll watch the end of the games. There are other friends of mine who go to every game. They have parties. They have lunches built around it, dinners. It's practically a religion. Many of them, I would say maybe 70% of them, aren't watching the games, aren't tuning in, and won't go to the games, giving their tickets away or throwing them away. Let's go to Joe. Joe in Texas. You wanted to add what?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I think in a way it was like beating a dead horse. I mean, I think Trump and Pence are winning the argument, but I do think this particular action seemed a bit phony, or, like they said, a stunt.
But Joe, why is it a stunt? Why is it a stunt when the vice president does it, but it's not a stunt when these players do it every week, week after week? We got the point. We know you're going to kneel.
That's why we don't like what they're doing.
Right. So why is a counter-protest or a response a stunt? I mean, it was, according to the president, if you believe what the president tweeted out, and I have no reason not to, he said this was planned well in advance that the vice president would go to Indiana. Now, did they imagine or think, well, they might kneel, the 49ers might kneel, maybe Colts would kneel, and if they do, we're going to get out? Yeah, they might have had that conversation. But that doesn't mean that it's a stunt. It's just, if they do this, this is going to be our response. That's called media strategy, which, frankly, I'm glad to see the White House doing a little bit of. They need to do more of it.
Okay, one last word.
Yes.
Fortunately, black folks are 13% of our population, but they commit 65% of our violent crimes. That's why people are afraid of them. We're not afraid of Asians or white people. There is a reasonable fear of young blacks in the city.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I don't know if I quite agree entirely. I mean, I understand that there's a higher incident of crime in the black community, but I live in a city that's 68% black, and I don't fear black people. They're people who I have lunch with, I go to the grocery with, I'm surrounded by all the time. So I guess I couldn't live in New Orleans if I feared black people. So I don't fear people, but I get your point. There are some, I think, who might, take this feeds all kinds of biases and I think concerns as well. When you look at the crime statistics, it frightens some people. We'll be back in a moment. They may, if you believe what the president said, he and the vice president had a conversation, and they said if the players knelt, Pence should leave. And that's what he did. I don't see what the great sin is. Why is the NFL players' constitutional rights sacrosanct? Yet when Vice President Pence decides to exercise after the national anthem to walk out, that's suddenly, tearing the Constitution in half. I'm not getting my head around this properly. The outrage that has ensued after this walkout. You'd swear the man, threw water balloons down on the opening play of the game. We're joined by Victor Davis Hanson, historian, military scholar, columnist, and Hoover Institute senior fellow. And he's recently written a piece about the glass house of the NFL. Victor Davis Hanson, thank you for being here. Oh, I don't hear Victor. Is he there? No, I'm not hearing Victor. Well, we'll go to him in a moment. Let's go to Eddie in Florida in the meantime. Eddie, you wanted to say what?
Hey, I just don't think that the average United States citizen born here in the USA relates to any of these guys taking a knee. I doubt that any of us have been to any NFL game or sometimes even hockey games. They're just too expensive. We don't travel in the same circles they travel in, and we get draft notices when the military goes somewhere, and they don't. They're deferred. They're that deferred class. So they're traveling in rarefied air, and they don't have a good grip on what's out here. If you don't like it, I would tell anybody, just shut the TV off. The sponsors will get it if they don't. That's all.
Well, they're getting it now, that's for sure. I mean, I think they're wringing their hands over what to do. Roger Goodall and the NFL owners, I personally think they're afraid of the players. They're afraid of the players walking out, because this is deeply held and personal to the players. When the president raised the temperature and said any SOB who kneels during the flag should be fired, they took that personally as if he was calling them out by name, and they wanted to register some response. And they did, which is when we had the massive kneeling the Sunday that followed the president's rally down there in Alabama. But the question is what to do now. How long can this go on? And why do they keep kneeling? And is the vice president in the wrong? We are now joined by Victor Davis Hanson. And can you hear me, Victor?
Yes, I can.
Great. I want to start with, do you see the NFL recovering from this thing? They do seem afraid of their players in some ways.
Yeah, I see them recovering into the status they were maybe 20 years ago, and in which they were not ubiquitous as they are now. But there were certain things in the NFL that people were bewildered by, and this brought it to a fore. The traumatic brain issue, injury issue, the glitz, and the whole corporate monstrosity of having all of this money and advertising. The games were 4 hours long, and there's about 11 minutes or 12 minutes of actual playing time. This idea that sportsmanship had become passé and showboating, and then there was, they're not subject to the diversity police. So you had a league that was 75% African American, and you had owners that were about 90% white, and yet the progressive left had said everything has to look like America, and we're all subject to disparate impact and proportional representation. So there were certain things that people didn't voice, but they thought were peculiar about the NFL, and this brought it to the fore. And Mike Pence understood that the market's going to adjudicate whether you or I like it or not. And the fact is that the business plan of the NFL is based on the present viewership, both TV and live audiences. And if they don't have that and they lose 10, 20, 30%, the present trajectory is not sustainable. And they're going to either have to cut salaries, or they're going to have to cut teams, or they're going to have to do something, because people aren't going to patronize at the levels that they need to continue as they are.
Well, in some ways, as I watched it, I thought, the vice president and the president here have a better read on the NFL customer than the NFL does. They're responding and standing in place of the guys, as one of our callers said. He said, look, I watch NFL games, but I don't have the money to go to the games. They're too expensive.
Yeah. Well, they think that the players think that the audience are coastal hipsters, and they're not. They're mostly the hardcore audience are males, usually about 30 to 60, and they tend to be red state conservative males that they're not bothered by the violence, or they're not bothered by a lot of the things in it, and they put up with it because they like the sport, and their parents and grandparents watched it. And so they're basically violating the cardinal rule of business: you never insult your base or your customer base, and that's what they're doing. And again, it doesn't matter what you or I say, or what the president or Mike Pence does, or what the owners or the players do. It's all going to be distilled down to money, because that's what the NFL is about. And the money won't be there if they continue to do what they do. It just won't happen. They have a very unsympathetic message in which African-American players, largely, not all, but largely, are saying the country is racist to the point that they can't even stand for the symbol of their country. And the viewer is going to say, I can't afford the prices that you charge to pay these people these salaries. I'm sorry. Or they're going to say, where are the Asian and Latino players? When I work at the post office or I work in schools, I'm subject to diversity mandates, and here this league operates on the basis of merit. Wow. Right. UC Berkeley worked on merit like the NFL would be 75% Asian, but we can't have that, we're told. But we can have it in the NFL. So there's certain vulnerabilities that the players don't realize that they're pushing into the face of the fan. It's not going to work. So I think they're going to lose 10 or 20% of their fan base, and that's going to make radical changes in how it's financed and operates.
Sure. No, well, you see that in the ratings already. They're down almost week to week, and then certainly over a couple of years, you see 20% down. That's big for the NFL. Eric Reed, who's the safety of the 49ers, had this to say. I'd like to get your reaction to this, Victor.
The last time he's been to a Colts game was 3 years ago. So this looks like a PR stunt to me. He knew our team has had the most players' protests. He knew that we were probably going to do it again. And so this is what systemic oppression looks like. A man with power comes to the game, tweets a couple of things out, and leaves the game with an attempt to thwart our efforts.
So Eric Reed, a safety for the 49ers, he says, this is what systemic oppression looks like. Your reaction?
Well, he's never been outside of the United States, apparently, because if he'd go to the Middle East or Africa or Asia or South America, he'd learn very quickly what oppression is. And I think part of the problem is that I taught it in the university, to take one example, with young people in their teens and early 20s. And people really, and I was that way, and you were that way, and people don't know a lot. But suddenly we give them celebrity status, and we expect them to be Socrates. So Mr. Reed is basically pretty unaware of what goes on, and we should give him no more currency than we do anybody else that age. But he thinks that just because he makes money and he has a particular skill in a very narrow field, that allows him to be taken seriously on vast social, political, economic issues, and he doesn't know anything. So we're supposed to listen to him because he can throw a football or hit somebody or tackle somebody, and there's no reason why we should. And so I think that's part of the players' problem. That what are they protesting about? Is it black racism against blacks? Is it police brutality? Is it Donald Trump? It changes week to week.
Yeah, well, it started as police brutality, but as we've tracked it, it's now racial inequity in general terms.
But they dropped that because people understood that while there is police brutality, in absolute numbers, there's more whites that are shot unarmed by police, and in terms of percentages of those who come in contact with law enforcement, people saw the statistics, and blacks were no more likely to be shot than Latinos or whites, based on how often they come in contact with police. So it was, and then the signature issue, hands up, don't shoot. Ferguson, Eric Holder's own Justice Department found that most of the narratives were false. So that wasn't an issue that was going to galvanize the country, and so that's why they changed it to a larger racism against blacks. But people looked at the NFL and they said, "Wow, the average income is just astronomical, and the conditions under which these players, enjoy are just alien to what I have to do to put up to pay for the tickets."
Right.
And then when you added Trump into it, no nation can survive if the narrative is we all don't have to just pay ritual, respect for the system that gives us prosperity and security. If their trajectory was nihilist, it wasn't going to go anywhere, and Trump understood that, and so he picked that issue to make political hay, and he was successful at it.
I want to switch gears a little bit. We're talking to Victor Davis Hanson on the Laura Ingraham Show. There was a big piece in the New York Times today. Tennessee Senator Bob Corker suggesting that the president is treating his office like a reality show and with reckless threats toward other countries that could set the nation on the path to World War III. They have been engaged in a bit of a Twitter war back and forth, Corker and the president. How wise is this for the president to continue to goad Corker, who's announced his retirement now? Or does this demonstrate that Trump has a better fix on the politics of the moment?
Well, I mean, Corker has some vulnerabilities. He was the architect of the Iran deal. It's at least on the Republican side, it's not going to prove historically wise. And he didn't run for re-election probably because he knew he wasn't going to get the endorsement of Trump, or he wasn't going to be appointed Secretary of State, as Trump tried to chide him about. Probably that was accurate. But it introduces a larger question. I mean, and I'll frame it like this. If you look at the hurricanes, was George Bush wise never to reply to Mayor Nagin in the way that Trump crudely replied to the mayor of San Luis? In other words, how did the experienced Bush administration get demagogued to death on Hurricane Katrina in a way that the Trump administration with Irma or Harvey did not? And so Bush was sober, judicious, polite, considerate, and the result was he was basically framed as a racist who wanted Katrina to kill poor people. And Trump was crude and outrageous, and people left him alone. And so he understands that. And whether we like it or not, or we find it offensive or not offensive, human nature being what it is, people make the necessary adjustments. So when he fights back, he brings out things that we either didn't know or we wouldn't want to be aired. And Corker's going to lose that, just like the NFL is going to lose that dispute, because and the bottom line is North Korea has no sympathy, and we've been kind and sober and careful what we said about it under Obama, under Bush, under Clinton, and the result was you're going to have a missile pointed at Portland or San Diego, and that's not a very sober and judicious thing to do. But that treatment of North Korea in that way has led to this appeasement. And so Trump comes along and said, I didn't create this monster, you did, and you did by your Council of Foreign Relations professionalism and sober language, and I'm going to try something different. I couldn't do any worse. And that makes people like Corker, who represent that approach, very angry. And I can't think of, as a historian, I can't think of a war that started over an accident or a misplaced word. I can think of a lot of wars that broke out because the aggressor thought that they could do something that in a cost-benefit analysis was worth the risk. And that's what's dangerous. Sending a message to North Korea that they can continue to do this is where we are right now. Sending a message that they better be careful because nobody can predict what would happen if they continue that will probably prevent a war and create deterrence.
Victor Davis Hanson, thank you for your insights as always, and for being here. I agree with you. I think Trump has broken through something with the Koreans. At least they're paying attention. The North Koreans are paying attention for the first time, whereas I think before they tuned us out so often. And Bob Corker, I mean, there's a reason he's retiring. He's out of step with, again, you said it earlier, vis-a-vis the NFL. He's out of step with his customers. They're clearly moving in Trump's direction, and Corker is with an entirely different group or the previous, regime. Victor Davis Hanson, thanks again. The Laura Ingraham Show continues in a moment. The number 855-40-LAURA, 855-405-2872. Your reaction to all of this, Corker as well as the NFL protests. I cannot believe they're still going on. We'll continue in a moment.
That huge credit bureau data breach a few weeks ago may have dropped off your radar, but your information may not have dropped off the dark web. Once your personal information is out there, thieves can then use it to steal your identity, months, even years after a breach. Fortunately, there's LifeLock identity theft protection. Sign up today and they'll begin using proprietary technology to monitor your personal information for threats, including new accounts in your name, money being stolen from your 401k, or your information being sold on the dark web. And if there's a problem, their U.S.-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. No one can prevent all ID theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock will look after your identity well after the last breach is long forgotten. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock today to get 10% off when you use the promo code LAURA. That's promo code LAURA, LifeLock.com, or call 1-800-LifeLock today to get 10% off when you use the promo code LAURA.
Welcome back to the Laura Ingraham Show. I want to go right to the phones. You wanted to comment on this NFL, these continuing protests. Flynn in Florida, you say what?
I say this. Why don't the owners impose a $500,000 fine on these people that won't stand up for the flag? And then they can put their money where their mouth is, like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson laid everything on the line to free this country. Let's see how dedicated they really are to this.
Great call, Flynn. Great idea. But we're waiting for the NFL to just impose the rules. It's already on the books. There are things you cannot and can do as an NFL player on the field. Taking a knee is not among them. Yet, everybody stands back. The owners have this very laissez-faire attitude, and it's proliferated. Let's go to Mike, Michigan. You wanted to say what about the NFL protest?
Everyone's forgotten about Martin Luther King, what he did. Everyone's forgotten about the fact the United States has gotten rid of slavery. A lot of the countries in Africa, a lot of Muslim countries still have slavery of various kinds. The national The nations of Indians here in America have never gotten rid of slavery. They have used it through their entire histories in their wars with each other.
Raymond Arroyo sitting in for the great Laura Ingraham, who will be joining us shortly. Her Billionaire at the Barricades tour is about to begin. You can go to her website, lauraingraham.com, or her Facebook page. The dates are there. Laura's in Philadelphia this week, and Lynchburg, Virginia, Myrtle Beach. She's all over the place, and she'll be in the media. You'll see her everywhere. Billionaire at the Barricades. You can pre-order it now, get it tomorrow. It really is kind of an unveiling of, and it explains so much of why Trump does the things he does. So many in the media are perplexed. They rend their garments every morning on these morning talk shows. If you read this book, you get real insight into why, what the thinking is behind Trump's actions, and the growth of populism as a movement, and how Trump is in some ways the fulfillment of that. Now, whether he'll be able to advance it or not, that's the open question. But the history of it is laid bare there. There are some also neat personal tidbits about Laura that I didn't know about, that I found interesting. I just read my advance copy on the plane the other day. I want to get into this, it being Columbus Day, and happy Columbus Day to all you people out there who, though you thought you were celebrating a great explorer, you're really supporting, I guess, the exploitation and degradation of indigenous peoples. There are over 45 cities that have banned the holiday. No more Columbus Day. We don't need it. It's Indigenous People Day. In fact, in L.A. County, they had a big back and forth. They just had a vote over this. I want you to hear this. This is Councilman Mitch O'Connell, L.A. Councilman. Listen.
We will no longer stand for revisionist thinking, celebrating someone who was responsible for setting in motion the greatest genocide known in world history.
Mitch O'Farrell, sorry about that. The greatest genocide in world history. Now, it takes a particular self-loathing, I think, to imagine that the guy who founded the continent that you occupy, who, it bears repeating, brought Christianity and the cross to North America, which people conveniently forget. You know, Columbus was acting under the Spanish crown. They were Catholic people. They brought the cross to the continent for the first time. And I wonder if some of the revisionists, some of those who want to strike Columbus from the record, don't have some latent animus toward Christianity. Because Columbus does represent that too. Now, they claim he barbarized people, he destroyed part of a genocide, wiped out native people. This is L.A. Councilman Joe Buscaro. Listen.
How can we, on one hand, support the dignity and human rights of people, while on the other hand, replace one group's social inclusiveness for the sake of another?
People don't realize Columbus has great importance, not only for Italians. Italians are very protective of Columbus, he being a paisan, but Latinos have respect for him, certainly the Spanish, and Americans used to have a lot of respect for Christopher Columbus. I want your take on this. 855-402. I'm getting the number wrong. And you won't believe who just walked in here.
40 Laura.
Oh, thank you. 855-40-LAURA, 855-405-2872. Your thoughts on the striking of Columbus from our holidays. Is this appropriate? Is it warranted?
Well, the wholesale effort to refound America, which is going on right now. They want to refound America into a basically conglomerate of grievance groups. America is not a country with a special tradition or a founding documents that ensure liberty and life for the average person. No. America was founded on principles that were at their core racist, subjugating, corrupt. And so America has to be taken down. America has to be subsumed into a larger international body of understanding that is sophisticated, that makes a lot of these decisions for the people who have been lulled into thinking that America is anything so great. So this Antifa crowd, the anti-Columbus crowd, is just part of the larger narrative that Trump exposed in the election, and that so many of us have been talking about for years, which is this effort to take power away from the average person and shuttle it over to these bureaucracies and these international institutions that are unaccountable to the people and that, frankly, don't have the best interests of America at heart. They don't trust Americans. See, the reason Trump won is because he trusts the average person over the elites who've screwed up the country for 25 years. He'd rather trust the people to decide their own destinies for themselves, give them more power, whether it's over education decisions or school choice or how to spend their health care dollars or any of these foundational issues. He trusts the average person. The establishment GOP, the Bob Corker types, they think they have all the answers. They think, well, just put us behind closed doors for a couple of days, and we're going to come up with this new Iran deal that's going to make everybody safer, or let us argue about how we're going to give amnesty to all these people who are lined up in the United States demanding all these rights. We'll figure it out behind closed doors, and then we'll just present the solutions to the people and hope come election time they'll forget that we just completely abandoned all our foundational principles. But the Columbus thing, it has a lot of similarities to the national anthem controversy, which I'm so glad Mike Pence walked out of that thing. I'm just so glad he just decided, forget it. I'm not going to. Why would you sit there and be part of an effort that cannot even acknowledge a one patriotic demonstration at a sports event? Why would you want to be part of that? I wouldn't. I would have done the exact same thing. I would have walked out of that. 855-40 Laura. This is just insanity.
Well, the other thing is they're attempting to credit Columbus with being the only barbarian at a time when...
You want to talk about what the indigenous people did to each other? How about the fact that they were cannibalizing each other?
You dig up the...
Raping their own people.
And they found head traumas, and I mean, they were murdering... One tribe murdered another with abandon. So these were brutal and horrible times. We don't have the luxury to look back with our 21st century eyes and judge the actions of people
when there was no Wi-Fi.
A brutal time. Yeah, exactly. No Wi-Fi, and you couldn't just buy your ticket to the NFL game on the weekend. And there's a new poll, a Marist poll. 76% of people believe Columbus and other historical figures should be judged by the standards and conduct of their time, not by our time. That's a good thing.
No, that's fantastic. And I think that, again, this is one of the reasons that Trump came to power. Because people have had enough.
Yeah.
They've had enough of being dictated to by the finger waggers and the shamers out there who want them to think that they're bad people because they like to march in a Columbus Day because you're an Italian American and you're proud of your own heritage. It's only Antifa has a right to block other people from speaking. Only the far left groups, only Black Lives Matter, only the La Raza groups get to have their say. But again, so much of this is being fueled by these outsider organizations who want Trump to fail, number one. They want Trump to fail, and they want the young people to turn against this country. If they can get the young people to believe that the American founding itself was corrupt, then they feel like they can take the whole thing to the next level.
Right, it was founded in genocide.
We need racial healing in this country. And racial healing will not happen in this country without Native American people.
Okay. Well, who's stopping Native American people from being involved in the political discussion? What are you talking about? The level of ignorance and the certainty of their positions combined into one is really breathtaking. And it's funny when you think about all the controversy with Trump, and we'll get into the Corker and all of that coming up on the show. But the issue of the anthem, the issue of Columbus, The continued denigration of our founders at the hands of these anarchists and these socialists. They're socialists. They don't understand that you can only push the people so far. You can only push the working class people of this country, the middle class. You can only push them so far. You can only hold them down for so long. That lid is going to blow off the pot. We saw the first example of that in recent times with Trump's election.
Right.
Before that, we saw George W. Bush have to pull a terrible Supreme Court nominee, Harriet Miers. We saw the 2007 amnesty of George W. Bush defeated by Republicans like myself and others. And then you saw the resistance to Obama's policy, so much so that he didn't get through a lot of the stuff he wanted to do. Yeah, he got Obamacare through, but look what happened. He lost the presidency. He couldn't deliver the presidency to Hillary Clinton. He couldn't grow the economy, or didn't want to, I don't know. He couldn't grow the economy in 8 years. So 62% of the country still thought we were going the wrong direction. So you might have talented politicians who can come along and talk the good globalist game for an election cycle. You might have that. But these issues aren't going away. I mean, you're not going to be able to remake America in a false image. And yet they think that if they can import here's what they think. They think that if you can import new people into the country who have no relationship with the American founding and aren't being taught the truth about the American founding in school, then they think they can arrive at a tipping point. And so states like Florida will permanently tip Democrat, states like Texas, and if they can flip Texas and flip Florida, it is probably over for the populace. So they have to replace you, the American people, with a new breed, with a new group of people who would be fine to say, yeah, Columbus seems like a really bad guy. That's fine. Robert E. Lee, no, we don't get that. Why was he such some great man? Yeah, Woodrow Wilson and FDR and John F. Kennedy, they all had wonderful things to say about the soldiers of the South who were fighting for what they believed and also helped in the reconciliation of America afterward. But that doesn't matter to us. What matters is tearing down the old to replace it with us. We're the new. I think that's going to be a tough sell. And I think the left always takes it a step too far. They got gay marriage, and so then they went to transgenderism. Okay, then they said, okay, now we can do this. We get LGBTQ, RST, UV, WXYZ. But they misjudge the people, and that's why they never saw Trump coming. So my book, Billionaire at the Barricades, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump, that, of course, launches tomorrow. The Hannity interview tonight on the Fox News channel is my first television interview about this book. I'll be on Charlie Rose's show. We're taping that today. I think that airs tonight or tomorrow. I'm not sure when exactly airs, but I'm looking forward to that. He's kind of the elite's favorite go-to place. So that'll be a lot of fun. And we're going to, you have all our stops on the Facebook page on lauraingraham.com. You can see where we're going to be over the next 2 weeks. But I'm looking forward to talking to the Americans and the American people, all of you, who understand why the country voted for a wrecking ball. Trump is a wrecking ball to the elite class. He's holding up a mirror to their failures. People like Bob Corker, Mr. Iran deal. Bob Corker is a poster child for globalization and globalism. He has never met a trade deal he didn't like. He was all for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So this guy is the anti-Trump. And that's why he couldn't run for re-election. In this climate, the mask is off. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. The Antifa crowd out in full force. Columbus today, Washington tomorrow. Don't go away.
We need to celebrate the first people of these Americas, the people who are here before anyone else. Celebrate their cultures, their religions, and their beliefs.
Let's have some balance here in this conversation. Columbus from the 1450s to the early 1500s, viewed in through today's lens of political correctness and everything else. There's a great website called truthaboutcolumbus.com, which just smashes all of these attacks on Columbus. Really good. And exposes, by the way, you know who else was against the Columbus Day holiday? The KKK in the 1920s came out against it.
That's right. You know why?
Because of the Catholic connection?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't like
because
the Catholics.
Italians and Catholics
they don't
come
like
into
the
the country.
Italians. They don't like those dark-skinned people. They don't like them. Yeah, too dark skinned for the KKK. Look who's joining forces with the remnants of the KKK, Antifa.
That's what I'm saying. In 1937, when Columbus came along, when this day was formally canonized into the calendar, this was a migrant population that we want to celebrate, right?
Oh, no,
immigrants, Italian immigrants. They had a parade here in New York yesterday. Why is it now suddenly verboten to celebrate this man's day?
Let's go to Raphael in South Carolina. Rafa, go ahead.
Hey, I'm going to meet you on Friday because you're coming here to Middle Beach.
Oh, fantastic. Right? Oh, I'll see you then, Raphael. That's fun. That's going to be the Billionaire at the Barricades tour. We're going to be in Myrtle Beach on Friday night in the Philadelphia area, of course, on Thursday. So, well, when else? Thursday,
Wednesday.
right? Wednesday?
And you know what?
Oh, Wednesday. I don't even know where I'm going
Friday.
to be.
Yeah. You know, I am not Italian. I am not part of the Knights of Columbus. I have nothing to do with Columbus. But I'm fighting like crazy here in Middle Beach against the anti-Columbus people because when I read the sources, I read every source about Columbus, and there is no, all the stuff that they're saying about Columbus is not true. He did not genocide anyone. That's false.
Exploring and discovery and meeting new peoples and conquering lands. I mean, this is the history of civilization. This is the history of the world. If we want to go back in time and start pointing fingers at people, we're going to be here for a long time. And we had in Liberia African slave traders willingly trading and trade goods and money for themselves to give up their own people into slavery. We had Americans who were willing to enslave people who were a big part of the demand problem for the agrarian communities, absolutely. But this didn't all happen in a vacuum. That's why the repatriation option for so many black people who were enslaved in the United States wasn't a great one. That's why so few people wanted to repatriate to Africa. It wasn't any great shakes over there for the poor people. So look, we're into it for a fight on history for a long, long time. I heard a policeman talking about old school home security systems and why so many cops don't trust them. And he said they're so easy to disable that you constantly get false alarms. He said he's a fan of Blink Home Security and that police are going with Blink to protect their homes and families. Blinks are discreet, super affordable video cams that you install yourself in minutes. They're wire-free and run on 2 batteries that last 2 years. Blinks go inside and outside, and they're motion activated, so they're always on duty. And the instant Blink detects something, it sends a video alert to my smartphone. Basically, Blink stops crime before it happens, and Blink's live feed option lets me monitor my home from my smartphone. So no worrying if the kids are home safe and the doors are locked. Check out this deal I've got for you. Get 3 Blink cams for what the other guys charge for just 1. Go to blinkprotect.com/Laura. That's blinkprotect.com/Laura. And plus, you order now and you can get 10% off. That's blinkprotect.com/Laura. Oh, we all want gorgeous model-like hair, and I'm going to tell you how to get the hair that you've always wanted. You need to try my friend's Ovation Cell Therapy that will help you get thicker, stronger, healthier-looking hair. I know this because I use it. I get my hair styled a lot because of television that I do and speeches and so forth. And you have to have a hair care product that's just a no-brainer, that you don't have to think about, that you know once you use it, your hair is going to be better off. You'll feel better as well. And did you know, and some of you do, some of you don't, but did you know that Ovation Cell Therapy is clinically proven to repair over 75% of split ends and reduce breakage after just 1 use? And you bet it's risk-free with a 365-day, 100% money-back guarantee. Well, no one does that except Ovation because it's that good. So what are you waiting for? Your new hair awaits. Join the Ovation Nation as I have. Here's what you need to do. Very easy. Just go to ovationhair.com, select Laura Ingraham in the survey at checkout, and you get a special new customer discount and a free shipping offer for a limited time. So go to ovationhair.com, Laura Ingraham at checkout for your new customer discount. But you got to hurry because the free shipping offer ends soon. Oh, the story's coming out about Harvey Weinstein, the mega Democrat donor, booster, friend of the Obamas and the Clintons, really close with Hillary, close with all of these entertainment executives, political types, had given hundreds of thousands of dollars to Democrat causes. Some Democrats are returning some money. But I love how when they return their money, they're just donating it to other Democrat causes.
Like, you can then write a check back to them.
Emily's List, or well, we're gonna give up our our money that we got from Harvey because it's tainted. They only said this after they were called out by LifeZette and all these other conservative publications. Total frauds, double standard on women in the workplace and knowing your value and all. So it turns out that the Obamas had a special connection with Weinstein, that their daughter actually interned for Harvey before she went to Harvard. So she interned. I wonder, and did she see anything odd happen? Who knows? We know, and a lot of people knew about it. I had heard about it back in 1999. I heard a horrific story. I'm not going to repeat it because I could not in any way corroborate it. But let me say it involved an underage girl, and it was awful. And these are from two friends of mine who are Democrats, who worked in the entertainment industry and one in the modeling industry. That Harvey was someone who was a producing genius in his own right, but was a fiend when it came to this type of treatment of women. Meryl Streep was dragged into commenting on Harvey Weinstein, right? She was dragged. She clearly didn't want to say anything.
Talk about firing a bullet into the corpse. Wait until he's all gone. And then, this disgraceful news about Harvey Weinstein has appalled those of us whose work he championed. Wait a minute. They were like close friends. Work he championed. That's like a critic who writes a nice thing about you. These were intimate, close collaborators. The intrepid women who raised their voices to expose this abuse are our heroes, she says. And Streep goes on. One thing needs to be clarified, she says. Not everybody knew. Harvey supported the work fiercely, was exasperating but respectful with me in our working relationship and with many others with whom he worked professionally. I didn't know about these other offenses. I didn't know about his financial settlements with actresses and colleagues. I did not know about his having meetings in hotel rooms, his bathroom, or other inappropriate coercive acts. Come on.
I went through this montage that I sent to James, which just makes me want to scream laughing. It is funny to see people like Jennifer Lawrence, who hates Trump. She's like, trashes Trump every turn, that actress. She's gushing over Harvey Weinstein. Gushing. I'll see if she said anything. She was gushing. Standing next to him. Oh, Harvey, you're so wonderful. And Roger Simon is with us. He's one of our favorites. Academy Award nominated screenwriter, award-winning novelist, blogger, co-founder of PJ Media, terrific writer on the culture and politics. Love having him on. Roger, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Great to be here, Laura. I was listening to what you were just saying, and I'm just thinking I should sue Harvey, too, because he's turned down some of my scripts, and it's probably because I'm not a cute girl.
Well, you're not cute, and you didn't donate to the right political candidates. Let's face it. The Obamas so far have said nothing about this, by the way. I don't think, unless I've missed it. Michelle Obama, who is lavishing with praise, she's all for women and strong girls, and we're going to stand strong. And all you conservatives who voted for Donald Trump you can't think for yourselves. And now it's crickets from the Obamas on Weinstein.
Oh, for sure. The fun, when you're listening to what Streep said, of course she knew. That's ridiculous.
They all knew.
Everybody knew.
If I knew, they knew. I knew.
Of course. She worked with him all the time. She knew that she was getting great roles. The whole thing is a collaboration. A lot of these women, I hate to say it, are guilty in their own way for participating in this garbage. It's not, no one's hands are clean here.
Well, I think that, again, when you're 17 or 16 and a man like him pulls this on you, then you are a victim, and it is hard. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine how hard it is. But for someone like Ashley Judd or Streep, these people are mega stars in their own right. And to stand by and this is happening and you continue to associate with him, praise him, work with him, then let's just face it, money talks, principles walk. It was about money, and it was about power, and it wasn't about women or politics. It was about power.
And stardom. Stardom, the biggest, that's the biggest luxury of all. Everybody wants to stand up there, hold an Oscar, and all of that. And you're willing to eat a lot to do that. I mean, it's awful, and it's the way of the world, and it's horrible to watch. And Harvey is like the king of it all, but now he's gone.
Oh, how the mighty shall fall. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's face it. This behavior is really nothing new in the entertainment industry, the modeling world. I mean, this has been going on for decades and decades. Harvey's just he's the head on the wall right now. But again, these people are just such frauds on the issue of women's empowerment. They think it's okay. You go into a job interview, you dress really sexy, you have the low-cut neckline. You say, "Oh, I'd really like to work with you." What do you mean? The pigs will be the pigs. The pigs come to the mud. Okay, so women have to be careful. They have to be forthright. They have to report things when they happen. They have to be strong and stand on their own 2 feet. I'm not excusing any man who does this, because if my daughter interned for him, and I heard this had happened, it wouldn't take me 5 days to come right at him. That's all I can say.
No, I imagine it'd take you about 15 minutes.
No, yeah, I'd be on the next plane.
You'd be on the next plane or phone call, but a lot of people wouldn't. That's the sad truth. And the phrase "casting couch" is a cliche for a reason. It's the casting couch has been around as long as the couch. Unfortunately.
Well, that's a phenomenal point. Will there be any hell to pay with Hollywood on this, or is this just going to fade into the backdrop?
Well, a little bit, but Hollywood has been taking it on the chin lately. I mean, Hollywood isn't what it was when I first started at the game. I mean, I got into the punditry business in part, I have to admit, because Hollywood was getting a little dull and boring. I mean, Hollywood is not what it was during the days of The Godfather or God knows Casablanca. I mean, it's just another thing now on your cell phone. So they don't have as much leverage to continue what they do.
Well, and he had seen his own fortunes dim in recent years. Lots of flops. The Weinstein Productions had not seen big box office success. With the rise of Amazon and Netflix, he was about to launch a couple of different series, I believe on a couple on Netflix, and he had a couple of other projects. But I would agree with you. I think we're looking at the rise of populism, conservative populism in politics, and almost a version of that in the entertainment industry, where more people can have more input on the final product. And you still have the gatekeepers in the entertainment industries for sure, and they're all overwhelmingly left-wing. But conservatives have an ability to create real entertainment. They're going to have to start doing it, and en masse. They're going to have to start doing it.
Absolutely, they're going to have to start doing it. But they need help from conservative fat cats who have been reluctant to get into the arts at all. I mean, they'll back, the symphony orchestra and Beethoven, and I love Beethoven, but he doesn't need help. But they don't get out there and finance movies and things like that very much. They're kind of afraid of the arts, and maybe it's because the arts mean to them guys like Weinstein, which I don't blame them then.
No, I think that is an excellent point. I mean, I think the big donors were happy to fund a candidate, maybe even a challenger, a primary challenger, but they think, oh, that's just money down a rat hole. But the culture informs. I mean, it is fertile ground for reshaping young minds, and whether it's now young people thinking Columbus is as someone who should be excoriated and purged from our memory, or what they're doing to the anthem, the culture matters, and conservatives abandon the culture in many ways over the last really I'd say half century. Conservatives have been stepping away from the culture, and I think we've seen the result.
Exactly. I mean, you don't see a movie like Casablanca, which we all love and which made me love movies, wouldn't be made now. They don't. That's a patriotic film. I mean, it's patriotic for France too, which is a little silly, but it's a patriotic movie, and it's a fantastic movie. But we don't do that. I mean, intermittently we do it, but not very much. And that's just part of it. The whole spectrum of culture has been abandoned by the right to a great degree. And as you say, it's terrible because that's where everything begins. That's where the 10-year-old goes to the movies or watches a TV show and their mind gets formed. But we're missing out.
Well, and a friend of mine, Roger, who is in the video game industry, he's a computer programmer. He happens to be a conservative. He lives in the Bay Area. He said to me, Laura, you can't imagine that the political messages are even being inserted into video games with the way they're, messing with gender, with the not so subtle political elements being dropped into certain games. And he said, there are a few of us who are conservative in this industry, but we're afraid to speak out. And, when you're a young kid and you don't have any other livelihood, it's easy for me at my perch to say, be brave, be brave. But they do have to put food on the table. So it's a hard situation for young people who are conservative.
Very tough. And I noticed that yesterday, I just noticed reading online that James Woods, who is one of the best actors in America, going away. I mean, fantastic, has announced that he quit because he can't get any parts. And, I sympathize with him. You're talking to the only person on the planet with an Academy Award nomination for adapting a Nobel Prize winner in literature, and they won't employ me.
Well, and I think we've seen this time and again. Again, if you don't have the right views, you don't cover up for Harvey, you don't, whatever it is. If you make a fuss about this, or if you look like you're someone who would even give Trump the benefit of the doubt on an issue, then we don't need you. So it's the most censorious crowd out there is the Hollywood entertainment industry. They are the biggest censors of all.
The biggest hypocrites, too.
The worst.
The world's capital of hypocrisy. I mean, on every level. I mean, they are the champions of do as I say and not as I do.
Hey, Roger, any thoughts on Bob Corker's huffing and puffing at Trump? It's like, oh, well, we know this daycare center in the Oval Office. The man who brought us the Iran deal, along with Ben Cardin of Maryland.
I have a very simple thought. Bring on Marsha Blackburn.
Yeah, well, we're gonna see what happens in that Tennessee race. She'll be one, but there'll be someone who's more of a conservative populist, not of the globalist variety, who's also going to challenge for that seat as well. But Marsha Blackburn's been around for a long time. I just hope she's not too establishment for that seat, because the establishment has failed the people. They have failed America.
Well, you're right about that, but she's way better than Corker. I mean,
that's for sure.
Her comments are off the chart. Hey, look, he's responsible for the Iran deal in his own way. So I mean, that's as bad as it gets. The Iran deal is
just on that alone. Just on that alone, he should be drummed out of office. Roger, love having you on. Come back anytime. Thanks so much for joining us. You have a great Indigenous Peoples Day. I hope you have fun marauding in all the wrong places. You take care. We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. The Corker-Trump fight. That's just a small spark. The fire was burning on Election Day last year. That's just another spark. That's just another element of this. But it's not surprising at all for me. Bob Corker is the old guard. Trump took the wrecking ball to the old guard, and they still haven't gotten the message. Don't go away. That huge credit bureau data breach a few weeks ago may have dropped off your radar, but your information may not have dropped off the dark web. Once your personal information is out there, thieves can then use it to steal your identity, months, even years after a breach. Fortunately, there's LifeLock identity theft protection. Sign up today and they'll begin using proprietary technology to monitor your personal information for threats, including new accounts in your name, money being stolen from your 401k, or your information being sold on the dark web. And if there's a problem, their U.S.-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. No one can prevent all ID theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock will look after your identity well after the last breach is long forgotten. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock today to get 10% off when you use the promo code Laura. That's promo code Laura, LifeLock.com, or call 1-800-LifeLock today to get 10% off when you use the promo code Laura. So they kicked him out of Weinstein Productions. His brother is now in charge. And still haven't heard from the Obamas, still haven't heard from the Clintons, haven't heard anything from Nancy Pelosi that I've seen. Where are all these great champion of women? Where are they? It's so fun to look back on all of the praise being lavished on Harvey Weinstein. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. Go to Facebook and lauraingraham.com. Tour details.